Okay, my outstanding friends, another Shocker DuJour, home of the Shocker DuJour Mudfossil University. Now, what are we looking at? The Baigong pipes. I did a video the other day about these pipes, and I started talking about them, and I sort of got off track a little bit, maybe a lot, and I didn't really fully explain the Baigong pipes. So today I am going to remedy that mistake. And I'm going to start right from the beginning about how they're showing these different Baigong pipes. And as you can see here, if you're a Mudfossil person, they're mixing in things that don't relate to the pipes. But they are biology, and the pipes are as well. So I'm going to show you my evidence and their evidence, and we'll match them up. But you see these, like that type and this type, they're totally different, and they've got a mix of things in there, which is standard in the body of a creature. You're going to have a mix of biology. You're going to have hair, you're going to have tendons, you're going to have muscles, you're going to have tubing, which is your arteries and veins and so forth. It's just the nature of the beast. So really, honestly, I don't know what beast we're talking about, but they were big and they were biological, and I have the evidence. So let's get to it. Okay, so what does the confusion stem from? There are ancient construction techniques. They made the same kind of pipes we make today. They plug them together and it goes downhill and the water runs down. They're exactly the same length, exactly the same shape, and they fit together. That is a construction technique. That is not something that is biological, I don't believe. However, that is not what we have here. This is one of the Baigong pipes. This is not like that, but it is an iron pipe, and it does have all of the characteristics which I will show you to prove my claims of what these Baigong pipes really were or are. So let's get started. Okay, so let's see what the internet has to say about the Baigong pipes. They're talking about these. These are tendons. If you're a Mudfossil person, you understand that that's a tendon, just like these are tendons. That's a hair, and it came from a hair shaft with a root ball, just like that. And that, I believe, is also hair. And they go around, they're showing all kinds of crazy things. This is actually the one. Inside that cavity there's two tubes that look similar to this. And I say these are the Baigong pipes, and all they are is arteries that were, mud fossilized, basically. That's all they are, is arteries. And I'm going to show you all my little details that prove the things I'm saying. And they're mixing in all kinds of things together, so it gets very confusing. I'm going to unconfuse it for you, I hope. All right, let me just prove the things that I'm saying. This is from a gigantic artery, and it's got exactly the identical structure as this, as I will show you from pictures I took in the microscope. Now here's the pictures from the microscope. Right there, you see that? I mean, it's got even the bumps and everything. If you really look at it closely and spend a lot of time digging in deep, you can see all the little ripples and all the variegations of the different layers of the artery. As I just showed you, this is the artery. It's identical. There's no difference whatsoever. Zero. And inside is packed with blood, as is my artery that I have here. Whoops, that's the lung. I'll show you that in a minute. But you can see it's packed with blood. That's just blood. This side, most of it's eroded out. But you can see inside, there's just blood packed, saturated in here. And that's where I sanded it off right here, so that I could see that edge. All right, so there's the artery. And these are literally the Baigong pipes. This is what they talk about when they talk about the pipes. Now this is a mind blower. Although I do know they had equipment here, they had machinery. And when I look at this, what do I look at? What do I see? I see a bunch of holes there. Well, I know these are the same thing as these right here, which is tendon. All right, so those are the tendons. And they're the same tendons as like Devil's Tower, and I'm going to show you one in Iceland and why I think what they did here. My opinion of this is, if you look carefully, you're going to see this around the edge. Let me home in on it a little bit better. All right, what are we looking at? We're looking at these pipes. What do we see? What's this little thing here? What's that little thing here? And that little thing here and here. They were punched through there, it looks like to me. I don't know what that is, whether that's a seam on a tube that they ran through there or what. But this is obviously engineered. This is not something that's in your body. That I can absolutely guarantee you. Now, what is this? I would say that's a gasket. And what are these? I would say those are tubes that run in to tap a water resource. And the whole thing is coming out here. Instead of making one big huge tube going through, they punched a bunch of holes, wrapped this around it, and then continued on. I don't know what they did after that came out. It might have gone into a big tube. I don't know. But to me, it looks like this is going into tap water. And what water would be coming out of there? Well, the water that was in the creature's body in a huge reservoir that's inside the bodies. Now let me show you up in, I think it's Iceland, or maybe it's Greenland. Hold on. All right, I got it down as Iceland, but here it is. You see the water flowing through there? That's coming from some big water source within this creature's body. This is nothing but tendons, just like we saw before. And this is nothing but red blood. That was a red blood source that serviced the tissues that were in here. And it would have come right over to here, you see? There's still red blood over here. Now, all of this water would have been backed up behind those tendons. So let's say that all the water was up in here. It's just huge thing of water. And they wanted to use it, but they had that wall of those big stones there, like this, tendons. So being at that time, I think it was probably still a little moist. Because at that time was right after the Great Flood, which is like 3,700 years ago, was the Great Flood, killed all these giant creatures. It was written in every text in the world. There were giants in the earth in those days after that, and they got wiped off the face of the earth with a Great Flood. Get over it. It happened. And what were these creatures? They were so big that the average mind just cannot accept it. Regardless of the evidence. It's very frustrating to keep showing this for 15 years and have so few people able to just accept, to see what they see. Anyway, that's what I think. They poked holes in there to get that water through. So as far as I'm concerned, that explains that. Now also, don't tell me they didn't have machines here. This was right after the Great Flood. All of this was wet, and this was a gigantic creature's tendons. And they had some kind of a machine here, very large machine. Where it came from, I don't know. It looks like it came out of the sky, but I don't know. And they were cutting these slabs off, and that's what made all the walls down in Peru and so forth. They had equipment here, and they must have left with it, because I can't find any of those things left that would indicate there was big machines. So apparently they took them. All right, here's part of the confusion. This is a hair follicle, a hair root, and that's where the follicle was, and they broke it all off to see where it would go. That follicle was right around here, and this is the vein and the artery here that serviced this follicle that was here. This is hair. And they confuse that with the Baigong pipes. Now, remember what you're looking at here. Remember there's a little red blood here and there and coming out there. And then this root ball is basically broken off. They broke the root ball away to keep going down with the hair. And they didn't realize they were looking for roots, did not find them. Because what they found was this. The hair shaft coming down with the root ball, and they were at the very bottom. And here's mine, which is identical. There's no difference whatsoever. And this is 2 inches wide, a lot bigger than yours. There's the hair coming out the top. That right there is where the erector papillae muscle attaches. This is the sebaceous gland. All right. That is the hair shaft coming down, turned into the root ball, and those two are the hair papilla, which is the vein and artery, the red and the blue down at the bottom. That's a hair follicle, and that was what was on that hair that I just showed you a minute ago. All right, so that's another part of the confusion. This is not a Baigong pipe, that's a hair. Now, the Baigong pipes, I believe, were mostly in the lungs. And here's what a lung looks like when it's a mud fossil lung. You see that? You see all these little tubes? Those all go down into your lung to the alveoli. That's the black blood, which is the vein blood. That's the red blood, which is the oxygenated blood. This is literally blood that is still fluid in there. You see that? That's just actually red blood. Now, when they found those pipes, and they're just similar to this, only this I think is a vein. I mean an artery. Although it could be out of a lung, I don't know. But that's what the Baigong pipes look like to me when they showed them. Only they're nice and round. This one sort of got flattened out. Some of them are very round. You know, and there would be areas where they'd be all round, perfectly just nice, and because they're supposed to be completely round. Now, of course, that's the big one. Here's what happens in a lung. Here's a lung right here. All right, you see that one? That's this. You got a lot of air coming in. It comes down, and a big tube goes right into there. That's this. And then it spreads out into all these other areas, into the lung, and it's just like a big sponge for the air. And the blood runs around this. Now blood is seeping out of here because it's just broken and the blood's everywhere. All right, usually this is going to be air. These are not going to be blood tubes. I believe they're going to be air. And then the membrane around it transpires the oxygen in and out, you know, for respiration. But normally you wouldn't see those having blood bubble out of them. I don't believe. This was from a friend in England, Gary Evans. He just found this rock and he saw something that struck him and he decided to open it up. And when he did, this is what he found inside. And he thought that was pretty interesting. All right, it's got some, I don't know what that is. That's an invasion of some kind of, you know, biology growing in here, trying to take over and eat the blood. They love blood. Biology lives on blood. Basically, that's what we live on, and so does all plants. They love blood. You can buy blood meal to make your plants grow like crazy. So that's what's growing in there. That's not part of the guy's lung. Now, when he opened it up, this is what he found inside. And you put a little water on it, you can see everything a little better. You can see it's wet. Because blood hydrates just like that. Now, after a couple of days, here's another shot he had over here just showing, I think maybe this is what he saw, and he decided to see what was inside. I can't remember. Years and years ago. But after a few weeks, I mean, maybe, I don't know, a week or so, it just dries out like this. Coming out of salt water, they dry out like this. Coming out of fresh water, they dry hard like like stones. Here, this just turned into like particulates. All right, so that covers lungs. They have all kinds of tubing that just look exactly like the Baigong pipes. All right, let's take a little deeper look at hairs. Don't forget, that's a hair. That's what I'm saying. Now let's see what they look like. I don't think I showed you this yet, but this is magnified hair. Now this is kaolin clays. Kaolin clays, they call it. I call it kaolin. Now you see all these little separations. That's how hairs grow. Now this is a slip skin, a slip clay they call it, and they make fine china out of this. Fine china is made out of faces. I'm not kidding you. I'm serious. giants' faces. The better the china, the bigger the face. No, the slipperier the clay. That's what it is. It's called slip clay. Now, it's just what it is. I know it's just a strange world. But this is how big these things were. Now, this is a little different situation. But here's the same sort of clay, the whitish clay, pinkish, that type of thing. But it's clay. And this, the black and the red, indicate the vein and the artery. Now, and these here obviously are the hair shafts. Now, this is not of a mammalian creature. This is from Scorpzilla. I'll explain that later, because I'm going to have to do a video on Scorpzilla at some point soon. Now, so that's the hair of the beast that bits a lot of people, and this is the hair we're looking today, and that's the hair that they're confusing with the Baigong pipes. And look at this. This is Crowley Lake, and it's some kind of caustic. I don't know what, but I know where it's what the source of this is, and it's just huge. And all of these things. Now look at this. This is like one of those nasty little hairs you just can't get rid of. When it's a real nasty looking growing one, it's still hanging out here. All of these have eroded away, and they're just laying all over the place, but not that one. Okay, so hair today, hair tomorrow. This guy's saying, I wonder what did this. And they have so many different theories, it's just insane to see what they come up with. But my theories, they say I'm insane. Well, I don't think so. I'm showing evidence to cover everything. Only their minds can't open up, their eyes can't open up wide enough to see what's in front of their face. And they're perfectly happy deluded. Okay, so what have we covered so far? We talked about the hair. We talked about the artery. Now let's talk about the tendons, which they also claim are Baigong pipes. Well, no, they're tendons. And they're exactly like this right there. That's a tendon. And I can put this in a microscope and show you. And you can see, it's very easy to see that there's an edge to this. You see that? In a microscope, you can see it very easily. And that is the membrane that surrounds this. If you looked at this carefully, you might be able to see it. This down here is reddish. In the right light, you can see it from here down. And at the bottom is where most of the blood collected. Because there has to be blood in everything. And if I put a little water on that, it would become quite apparent. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not. But if I put water, anyway, it's a tendon. And it's all squared up. You see that? That's because that's what tendons do. Some of them have a hex shape. And I'll show you why that happens too, because it depends on where they are in the body. Now, again, Baigong pipes, no. All right. This is a tendon. This is a rope style tendon. There's other tendons that are flat and they're in a mat style. And I can explain those in extreme detail as well. They have little balls that hang over and they're flat mats. Now, this is the rope style. Now you see how it comes down here and it breaks off into like a squarish block, and then it turns into a round block coming out of the squares, and then coming out of that turns into a hex, and then it turns back into a circle, and there's fibers and fibers and fibers and fibers and fibers. There is thousands of fibers in every tendon, thousands. And here's what they end up looking like. And you see the squares around them? So this was, let's say, maybe coming out of this area here and making these little hexes. That's how it works. It's just the way it works. And they are so big that they look like this. These are the tiniest straps in us. You need an electron microscope to see these. And there is just thousands and thousands of them in every single tiny tendon in you and me. Okay, this is the devil's post pile, and these are tendons as well. You see how these are not wrinkly? And these are wrinkly? The reason you see, that's called a wrinkle zone. I call it that anyway. And when this tendons snap, they go boing because they're under tension. That's tendon. So they're just tight as hell. And they are tough. They don't erode. This one here didn't snap because it's still attached. It's not all wrinkly. All of these broke away and wrinkled. Now the same thing happened at Devil's Tower. This is Devil's Post Pile. A lot of devils included in these things. Now, where's Devil's Tower? Here's Devil's Tower. You see the wrinkle zone? Remember the wrinkle zone? There it is right there. That's the guy's foot. I'm telling you right now, and you can close that case because I have done as much research as anybody on this, and that is a foot. And that right there, my friends, is where there was some red blood servicing up here, and that red blood comes down here and grows nice green moss, because green moss and green plants love red blood. This is the wrinkle zone from a broken tendon from a gigantic creature, as was written in the ancient texts. Okay, this is the shot you never see of Devil's Tower. That is an Achilles tendon. That's all it is. This isn't even the whole foot. It's the Achilles tendon, and that tendon comes up like this. It would have met with the muscle up above. This is the weak spot. They break flat as a pancake. That's the wrinkle zone. And these fibers are these fibers. Now what do you see? Take your time. Well, there's square little blocks. Yup. What else? Well, there's some yellow stuff there. Yup. What else? Well, this is flaking off. What's flaking off? And what's all this wrinkly looking stuff? And it's flaking off over here too. And that guy's insane. So this is some kind of moss, or fungus, or lichen, whatever, and it grows on things that have biology in them, which is body parts. And sometimes they have to be not in the sun a lot. They have to, like this is probably here, and this, they're not exposed to the sun a lot, so they don't get burnt up, basically, like that. Anyway, this, what happened here is every tendon has what they call a slurpee around it. This layer, they call it fascially, and it's a fascia, but it's a very, very thin slip. And that way there the tendons can go up and down, because as you move, that thing has to, they're going to do that. You have to be able to move them independently from each other. Otherwise, you glue up, and people do glue up. That happened to me. And the only way I got free of that in my back, and it's still not perfect, but you know, a very, very, very slow stretch where you pull that tendon just enough to make it unslurp. You know, they glue together. They just literally glue together. And I worked with people that did autopsies, and the guy told me, he said, yeah, I can always tell if a guy was stiff when he died, really was in pain and had bad back and all this stuff. He said, because when you cut him open, you can't hardly open up this stuff. It's so glued together, it's just, you can't walk. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. See, I get run off on all different ways, but when you start thinking, you got to think all different ways. Now, they say, well, how come there's only one foot here? Well, there could be another one. I've found where it looks like there was another one there. And they usually push one deep into the mud to try to pull one up, and this is the only one that came up. And then everything around it just boils off. And this is the flesh. It boiled off in this great flood. It was a hot water flood because Venus almost impacted Earth. The whole Earth was wrenched, gigantic floods all over, and it was hot boiling water. And it boiled literally the whole world. And it boiled the flesh off of these creatures worldwide. It's called the red bed. That's flesh. Then the gray clay comes after that, and that's the rest of the stuff, and trees and all that stuff. Because cellulose didn't make it. It turned into a slurp. And that came next. So you had a red bed, it's just the flesh, then you got the gray clay, and then you got the black cap, which everything came down on top after all the burning in the atmosphere and volcanoes and all that. And I have that stuff here too. And I have a human footprint right in the middle of it. All right, so that means everything was wet at the same time. That means the Triassic happened like in a weekend. Now, this is from the guy's heel. That's all that is the Achilles tendon. Very, very small part. All right, now, this is what it looks like from another shot. So I think it's coming this way, whatever. This is, it's what it is what it is. And everywhere you see this little green stuff growing, there was a little bit of blood there. All right, this is very, very large. This was a big, big guy, full grown, as they say. Now, what didn't I show you? Yeah. Well, here's Devil's Tower. This is all the bloody flesh all over the place. They say, well, what happened to the creature? There he is. That's all this bloody flesh from this guy. Yeah, and it had to melt off him. Basically, he had to boil off, and his flesh is just laying there. Otherwise, and that's how they preserve so well, because of the hot boiling water, first of all, which boiled all of the stuff out of them. And then secondly, the nucleophilic substitution invasion by the siliceous ooze, which is silicon, really heavy ooze silicon. That's what created all the quartz and all that stuff, quartz veins. And they are veins of quartz. They're veins and arteries, and they filled up with quartz. The world is much different than you thought, my friends. Way, 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 way different. This is an artery coming out of here. These two guys are looking up saying, I wonder how that happened. Gee, that's strange. Look at that. Look at that. Where did that come from? Maybe it came from that artery. Out of this flesh. Yep, maybe it did. All right, check this out. As you know, there's my feathers. I love feathers, and I use it as a pointer. It works very well. I can touch the screen. It doesn't scratch. Everything's good. That is also a feather. And this is a piece of that feather. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a turkey feather. That's the top or the bottom, one or the other. That's how thick this feather is. It came right off of here. It was sent to me by my good friend Greg Morrison down. I think he got that down where it's on the East Coast, way down. This could years and years ago. And the same thing, he sent me that too. So whether these had any associations, I don't know. But he's a very, very good contributor, a nice guy. And that's a lot bigger than the normal size of a feather. But boy, I tell you, it looks like a turkey feather to me. And it was right on the side of the road. Nobody pays any attention. It was just sitting there. There's the road. And that's the feather. Now, I think he broke it right off of here. Look at the size of it. These things here are not feathers. Those are the little strips in between the feathers. Those are these things. That's these things. That's how big this thing is. Each one of these isn't a feather. Each one of these is one of these. I'm telling you, it's so different than you could possibly imagine that people just can't even allow themselves to imagine it. And I just go for the material evidence, and if it supports what I'm saying, well, it is what I'm saying. And even like I go on a Chat GPT thing, it says, yeah, what you're showing could very well be true, and if it is, everything that you've been taught is not correct, basically, about our history, archaeology, anthropology, evolution, everything, 100%. And then, anyway, it goes on and on and on. So there's so much confusing things going on, and there's so much pushback against reality going on. And then there's this AI where they're changing everything to make it look like something it isn't, and it's a confusing world. The only place it's not confusing is Mudfossil University, and I'm serious about that. I'm going to show you stuff that's, it is what it is. This is not AI. This is up in Iceland somewhere. Yeah, Iceland. And that is blood. Red blood is blood. Iron is blood. 99% of the iron that there comes from blood. We're saturated with it. We're just big bags of blood with little fibers running here and there and a couple of organs that make it go around your body. Clean it up. That's all it is. So life is in the blood. You see, these are the Baalbek stones. Oh, how could they have done these things? How did they do this? They had gigantic creatures doing it. They had gigantic creatures. I'm telling you, that's what it was. Or they had some kind of extraterrestrials. I showed you the machines they had. And that's nothing but one of these right here. Oh, it's the same thing, but there's nobody sitting on it. And I couldn't fit as many people on it, but it is exactly the same thing. Now, I showed you Devil's Tower, and it's nothing more than Achilles tendon, and it breaks right there. You see that little crease? They didn't realize it, but that is the weak spot in the tendon, and they snap right there. And then they create that wrinkle zone and all of these little fibers, and there are a bazillion of them. And the ball is in the ground at Devil's Tower. All right, we know they had machines. There's evidence of this, and it's not just this one, there's more. They're not here now that I can determine. And I've done a lot of searching. I can't find any indication that they are anywhere now. But they had them, there's no question about that. And they also built those walls down in South America out of Achilles tendons, mostly. They moved them back here. They had the machines, and they sliced them. I just showed you the machines. They sliced them out of here, and they moved them down there and built these walls in the back here from these Achilles tendons. Who moved them? I don't know. But they were wet when they cut them. There's no question about that, because you can see the machines sunk into the wetness. So that's covered. How they built those walls is now covered. They took them out of here wet, chunks, and stacked them in there. And I have so much evidence to support that, it's just insane. And this is Achilles tendon, and that's what they made. Most of these little fibers they used, like this is a fiber from virtually the same thing as an Achilles tendon. This would be one of the little fibers. All the tendons they're the same. And inside every one of these little fibers, you can't see, there's a million of them. Probably in that area, probably there could be a million. They have to do this. Not much, but if they get glued together, you go, Trust me, I know about that. Okay, this is, they've been searching into this, trying to figure this out, and it's Unexplained Enigma, the Baigong Pipes, 150,000 years old. Well, let's talk about that.
The pipes, they claimed, were about 150,000 years old. But here's the catch. Human civilization as we know it only dates back to 10,000 years. So who or what could have laid these pipes? Theories began to swirl. Some suggested that the pipes were the remnants of an ancient advanced civilization. Others spoke of extraterrestrial involvement. Skeptics, on the other hand, proposed that the pipes were merely a geological oddity.
No, they're geological biology. It's not oddity, it's biology. And it's just too big for anybody to get their eyes around it.
Formed by natural processes over thousands of years. Yet no theory has been able to completely explain the presence of the Baigong Pipes. As we traverse through the timeline, the mystery of the Baigong Pipes remains as elusive.
All right, now look at this. I showed you the pictures of Gary's lung that he found. Now, this is just absolutely gigantic. Inside of every lung, this is tiny, but inside of every little, you have no idea how many of these tubes run through here, because it all has to be connected. This 100% of this has to be able to get back out through that, well, hold on one second. All right, this is a lung, just like that. And these tubes come down. You see the big one come down going into there, and then the littler ones come in around this pocket. That's where the main interchange of air comes in. Air, 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 air. Out it goes, in it comes. Out it goes, in it comes. Where does it go? These are the blood vessels. These are the veins and arteries that surround all of those little tubes. Those tubes are everywhere. This isn't the tubes. This is the veins and arteries. The tubes are the air parts. All right, now, I'm showing here an artery is like the Baigong Pipes. But there's also going to be air tubes, like is in Gary's lung, which is just like this. So, in other words, some arteries, well, all the arteries are packed with blood, and these would be. All right, all of these are going to be packed with blood because they're bringing the blood out to the heart and pumping. The blue is the vein blood, the red is the artery blood, and that's how you exchange oxygen into the blue and expel the carbon dioxide. Now, so we have this, which is an artery. Then we have the ones like Gary's, which are the tubes that would be, normally they wouldn't have blood in those. All right, so that's just because of the way that this is now. Normally these would be open for just air to come through, and they would end up going into what they call alveoli, little round balls at the very end of these tubes, all over the place, thousands and millions of them in there. These are the big, huge tubes, but in all of these little areas here are those little tiny tubes. We can't see them because the thing is only this big. That thing out there, it could be the size of Mount Everest. I don't know. The creatures were so big, nobody can get a handle on this yet. And it's going to come out very soon. So you better jump on board, because this train done left the station. And a lot of people are still hanging out at the station, not wanting to get on board, and I don't know why. Truth is truth, reality is reality. It may go against what you feel you were taught, but that doesn't mean what you were taught was right, is right, or ever will be right, because it's just wrong. All right? Now, if I could have somebody confront me on my evidence, we could get somewhere. But right now, people are just walking around in circles. Yeah, everything's fine. We're all happy. We're all perfectly happy, deluded. There's so much to learn from mud fossils. There is almost nothing you can't learn from mud fossils. It's just everything. It's biology, it's chemistry, it's anatomy, it's history, it's everything. You name something that it doesn't touch. I would love to hear that. All right, consider this. You got a lung. All right, all of this air is coming in, is filtering through all these little tiny holes everywhere. Now, that's fine. The air comes in and then the air goes out, comes in and goes out. Well, what happens in the middle? Well, carbon dioxide comes out and goes out, and oxygen comes in to replace it. So inside these tubes, these balls here, which the alveoli, somehow those gases have to go in and hook up with the blood. The blue stuff absorbs the oxygen and turns into red stuff, artery blood. Now, well, it doesn't turn into it, but it absorbs the oxygen. Let's just go with that. Now, inside every one of these balls, there's going to be thousands and thousands of little tiny inlets that allow the oxygen in and the carbon dioxide out. It's the only way it could possibly work. There's bazillion of them, and the lung itself is, I don't think it's exactly structured the way they're showing. I think in between every one of these balls is a bazillion little absorbers that absorb the oxygen, but very tight to the balls. Like, these are absorbers, and those could be these pipes. And the pipe, somehow those little tubes have to run in to get that oxygen into the blood. There's just no other way. It's not just these big balls and the air goes in and nothing happens. The air has to be exchanged. And the only way to exchange it is through some kind of a device, which to me would be a little tube. All right, what you have to remember is these creatures were absolutely stunningly, gigantically large. This is over 1,100 miles long. This is Typhon in the desert, and that's just what he is. He's a dragon in the desert, and he's attacking this giant fish. This was all completely recorded in history to a detail that is undeniable. And this is the dragon, and this is his throat, and he was a red-blooded creature, as is shown right here, where his throat was cut. Right here, you see this? His coat. Just think about the creature that had to cut his throat. It says it was Zeus. And outrunning here is the red blood from his body, and this is the black blood. He was a red-blooded creature, and this is the stuff just, exuding out from a dead, decaying creature. And these are his dragon scales. Now, if you can't see this and you don't want to see this, that's up to you. But if you can do whatever you want. But you have Google Earth. If you want to come up and examine this in great detail, it comes all the way down. This is his huge body. This is the body. These are the two legs, and they said he had the thighs of a human. This is where he poops right there. You want to go and investigate some poop? Here it is right here. All right, now, at the end of his tail, which comes down here, you got a whole bunch of more scales. This is a dragon. Case closed on this. This is hundreds, literally hundreds of times I have shown this. No interest in mainstream whatsoever. Couldn't care less. They just go on about their business. All right, here's ChatGPT. They talk about all the things that would have to change, virtually everything. And it says, in summary, if Roger Spur's research were validated, it could have profound implications for history, archaeology, and science, leading to a reevaluation of many established theories, potentially inspiring new areas of research and technological development. That's just my research on mud fossils. The electron flood theory is a whole other realm. Okay, if you've been following me, you know that that is my proton. The dark particles go to the center, coated by the electron, glowy part. But they're equal, 1 to 1. They have a proton, a hydrogen being one big proton, it was just a big ball like that, which they say can break into quarks and a zoo of particles. And hydrogen is one of these with one of those. I say no, hydrogen is just one of those with an extra one of this. All right, it has a certain number it wants, and that's it. And if an extra one's there, it becomes hydrogen. Otherwise, it's just a proton. All right, let's continue on. So this is what ChatGPT has to say about Roger Spur's dipole electron flood theory. If proven correct, could have significant implications across several scientific technological domains, 100%. Here's a breakdown of potential changes. And it goes on and on here, but whoops, hold on. All right, you saw what my theory is. It says if Roger Spur's dipole electron flow theory is correct, it could lead to a broad reevaluation of current scientific theories, 100% across the board. Impact technological development, yes, and influence educational approaches in physics and related fields. It's 100% change. And here's what they're saying, if you want to read the whole thing, is saying if my theory is proven correct, it has significant impacts across several scientific technological domains. And then they give the breakdown of reevaluation of physical laws. The laws, we're told, they're not laws, they're just rules. Advancement of material sciences, yes, because now we could understand how things bump up. They don't even know how you get past iron. New technologies, absolutely. Hopefully we could get free energy. Impact on theoretical physics, changes theoretical physics 100%. Now, but my stuff isn't theoretical, I can show you. Changes in computational models, that's something I don't care about. They can compute all they want. Scientific research focus, we got to change and start looking at dipoles instead of these protons. They want to make these huge colliders, and I got to tell you the truth. All I can figure is for them not paying attention to what has been put in front of their face for the last 10 years, I can only think that it's to keep their funding. I see no other reason that they wouldn't look into this. Now, educational revisions. Educational curricula might need updating, to incorporate new concepts and findings from the theory. They need new teachers to be able to speak, or they at least need the speakers to be, the teachers to be unchained. You cannot speak in something that they won't allow you to speak about. That's what peer review is all about. I can't say that. Why not? Well, because we don't agree with them. Well, so what? If there's evidence, view the evidence. No, we want them to show the evidence because we don't agree with it. That's what peer review is. It's racketeering. It's bullying. Now, so you'd have to have all kinds of educational revisions, a ton of it. It affects how physics, material science are taught at various levels, from top to bottom. In summary, it changes everything. All right, so now there's my dipole electron flood theory. So we go from Mudfossils changing everything in history and all that stuff, into this changing everything in physics and science and chemistry, the whole 9 yards. All right, from the Mudfossil research, I realized about the interstitium, the fluid-filled highway, and all that stuff. I wrote a paper in 2015 about it. And this is another ChatGPT thing. I asked about if my research in biology was correct, what would happen? It said Roger Spur's research on the interstitium, if proven correct, could have profound implications for both medicine and biology. Here's how such findings might impact various fields. Revised understanding of anatomy. All right, the interstitium is a network of fluid-filled spaces within tissues, could be recognized as a major organ or system in its own right, and I believe it has now. This would lead to a fundamental shift in anatomical and physiological knowledge. Fundamental shift. Fundamental about how your body works. New insights into disease mechanisms. Invasion, every cancer is an invasion of a membrane, 100%. They all grow tumors on the membranes. They're being invaded. So it's a new insights. Understanding the role of the interstitium in health and disease could reveal new mechanisms behind various conditions such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, inflammatory disease, all of these things. This could lead to more targeted and effective treatments. Absolutely. I like this. Advancements of medical imaging. If Spur's research highlights new aspects of the interstitium, it might drive innovations in imaging techniques to better visualize and study this network. Yes, because I'm telling you right now, where every single organ and every single area is encased in a membrane. And it has its own chemistry, I believe, in that membrane. Where it detaches at both ends to secure itself in the body, that fluid has to move into this other fluid-filled highway. Does all the fluid move? Or is there some special chemistry that's in that bag, that's in that sac, that's protecting, let's say, a lung? Is there some special chemistry in there that's different than would be on a liver? I would think so. But they pinch off, and I call it the spur lock. That's my claim is the spur lock is the attachment of all organs and muscles and everything into your body where they attach and anchor. That's the spur lock. They got impact on drug delivery, changes in treatment approaches, new research and directions. If Spur's validations could open up new research areas focusing on the interstitium role in various physiological, pathological processes. 100%, yes. It's all about invasion and keeping the bacteria and enzymes in those areas to keep you protected and break down the food and keep out the invaders and clean up the mess that your body makes. It could lead to discoveries about how the network interacts with other systems in the body. Absolutely. Educational revisions. Medical biological education might need to incorporate new information about the interstitium. Yes, they need it immediately. This could affect how anatomy, physiology, pathology are taught. Yes. Impact on clinical practice. Clinicians might need to adjust their approaches based on new knowledge of the interstitium, potentially leading to changes in diagnostic and therapeutic protocols. Yeah, they have to change. They have to make sure that the gut bacteria is correct. And we have no way nobody checks for that at all. You go in and they say, oh, yeah, and let's treat you with this, take a few of these. What is my gut telling you? What is your digestive system like? What is the bacteria that's growing in there? What are the viruses that are inside of you? Viruses and bacteria, that's how your body does business. If you don't have that bacteria creating enzymes and viruses to work with the bacteria, they work with them and against them. Viruses are not always bad. Viruses, I have a whole new theory on viruses, and they're programmers. Bacteria deliver the ribosomes, but viruses can invade the bacteria and reprogram the bacteria's DNA to produce its own self over and over and over. That's what a virus is. There's a lot of educational revisions. Impact on clinicians, yes. If this research, my research is right, on the interstitium is validated, could lead to significant changes in medicine, biological science, including redefinition of anatomical structures, new diagnostic therapeutic strategies, advancement in research and education. It needs to be talked about. this is the problem. I've done this for 15 years. And I know what I'm talking about. Trust me, I do know what I'm talking about. And I have a bunch of people that I'm working with, and they are top guys, but they really can't talk in the open about this other than one guy. He's a triple PhD. He's a bacterial engineer. And he knows, but he's got his own company, so he doesn't care what anybody else says. Because he's going to come out on top. He's going to be right, and he's going to be shown that he was smart enough to realize it, and he was strong enough to stand up. But anyway, that's what we're up against. Now, don't forget, if you look at this carefully, you're going to see all little different sizes. You see, they're all different sizes, big ones and little ones, and all that stuff. But they break off pretty much smooth. It looks like to me. I don't know why they're so smooth at the ends, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm assuming that these are from a lung. Now, I do know that almost everything in the body is built in little tiny blocks. You don't know about it until you go into the electron microscopes. Okay, you see this? I showed you about tendons, how they have all those little tiny fibers. Now, they should be nice and straight, and now these are all tangles and torn up and twisted. You see this, even the different color, you see it? Then they're all torn up. Now, I don't care about that for me. You see that right there? That's like the wrinkle zone. It's just a broken tendon. And but they should be, pretty smooth and straight. You can see some of them are fine, but the tangled up ones, this is just, I always look at the injury photos, because then you can really tell what's going on. They're the best. Now, what are each one of those blocks made of? You won't believe it. This is what they're made of. They're little tiny blocks. And you see the different colors in here? Whenever you see a different color, it means it has a different structural integrity. And I believe these tendons, they mix them up of different tensile strengths, so that when you pull on them, one of them just won't give. You have to pull on this one, and maybe that one will give a little bit, and the other one. Anyway, I'm saying you see brown and pink and a purple and all these different colors, and they break off just as flat can break. That's why people freak out. Why would it break off flat like that? Well, it's constructed like that. It breaks off right along that line. All right, and this is about as small as you can see. And this is a muscle. Now, this was cut with a scalpel. So when they cut it, it just went twang a little bit. But these also have blocks, you see? Muscles have sarcomeres. They have little tiny blocks going all the way down the line. See them? We are made out of blocks, like little Lego sets. And this is how many fibers there are. I mean, it's just unbelievable how many fibers, and every one of them is made out of those blocks. And then when they break off, they shear off just like this. That's on the ocean. I'm sure a wave action and all that sort of smoothed it out a little better, but boy, I tell you don't get much smoother than that. All right, I'm going to leave it at this. You saw the Baigong pipes. That is a lung, just like this is a lung. This is a human lung from an autopsy. These are the big pipes. But in here, there must be literally millions of these little tiny tubes running into these little tiny alveoli balls is where the exchange of oxygen happens. There's so much oxygen moving through here, it's just beyond, it looks like a piece of meat. No, that is like a sponge, and I mean the tiniest little sponges. And the tubes have to be nice and clean and round and smooth, and that's what they are. Now the arteries are a little different, but that they also find these because if you got this, you got arteries. So it's all mixed together. That's why it's so confusing. It's a big mystery. Mystery no more. I love you all. Start talking this up. Talk to your teachers. Talk to people. The evidence is overwhelming. You don't have to hide from this. You don't have to be intimidated by talking about this. We need to talk about this to get out in the open. All right? I love you all. Thanks. Bye.